Guys, I am thrilled to be joining you here with Preston Smith from Ninja Sauce and Garrod Morris from Marketing Mavens. And just a little introduction on these guys. If you're not familiar with Preston or Garrod, Preston was one of our experts here at Infusionsoft. He actually was one of the people on the team. He was integral in developing a lot of the tracking that we still use today on our lead sources and our systems through our marketing and all of those things. And he was with 6th Division. I mean, the guy is pretty legit. And Garrod, Marketing Mavens, is responsible for some of the great tools that we have available to us, like Parsi, Graphly, just to name a couple of them. Really, really brilliant team and amazing, innovative things that those guys are doing. And so they're going to be sharing with us here today how to track lead sources like a boss and some tools and methodologies and great stuff all around that. So Preston and Garrod, thank you guys for joining us on the Business Booster. Excited to have you guys here. There we go.
Welcome out, everybody. And thanks, Matt, for having me and Garrod on this. There's me and Garrod. That's me on the left, in case you didn't know, and that's Garrod on the right. I don't know what it is for you, but that's what it is for me. So tracking lead sources like a boss or a ninja, that's what I added for you. That's just for you, Matt.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna go through, like, this is kind of a two-part presentation. I'm gonna walk through a lot of the methods and the ways that we tracked lead sources while I was at Infusionsoft, and a lot of the methods that I developed when I was there. And then then we've got Garrod here, who's going to talk about how to bridge the gap between the lead sources that you track through your ads and through your marketing activities over to getting those in Infusionsoft and displaying them and reporting them in a way that you can actually take action on them there. So my promise for you today is to go through how you should be thinking, implementing, and reporting lead source tracking. This is one of the things that has been the most instrumental in performance marketing and in revenue marketing, is getting your marketing activities as closely aligned to the revenue that you're creating as you possibly can. I've got a couple of acknowledgments here. Like this level, the level of lead source tracking that I'm going to talk about today, isn't 100% for everybody. And so basically the way I like to look at it is, if you're spending about $500, or if you have clients that are spending about $500, or you want to recommend that they spend a little bit of money on advertising, this level of lead source, the level that I'm going to talk about today, is definitely crucial to those efforts. So just keep that in mind as I'm going through this. You can use this for yourself if you're advertising, or if you want to track your marketing activities at this level. But also keep in mind, like, okay, I've got a couple of clients, this is what they're doing, I can use this for them at the same time. So feel free to steal this, everything that I have here, still like an artist, right? So the three elements that I'm going to go through today of lead source tracking is element number one: the closer you align your marketing to revenue activities, the faster you'll grow. This shouldn't be anything new to anybody, but like the more you know about the activities that you're doing and how they're impacting your revenue, like, you're just going to grow faster and you're going to save money. The second one is, you need a naming convention that you can use every time when building your lead sources. And it has to be consistent. It has to be something that is easy to do. And everybody on your team or your clients that you're working with can do that. The next thing is, you need a set of reports that you can consistently refer to for optimization purposes. So let me run through number one. The closer you align your marketing activities to revenue, the faster you'll grow. This is nothing new. This shouldn't be anything new. The goal is always $1 in on advertising and $2 out. So you put that dollar in, or maybe it's $1 in and $5 out, $1 in and $10 out, but you want a positive ROI. That's the goal. So your cost per lead is only valuable when you know the value of each lead. So you have to know that a lead is worth a certain amount of money. And that connecting your lead source to Infusionsoft and making that connection to the amount of money that you're making per lead is an integral part of that. So the other part of this is data-driven decisions remove emotion from the equation. I don't know how many times you guys have had conversations with clients, or you've had conversations within a team, and there's been a discussion of, well, I think this image is best. I think this image is best. I think this headline works. I think this headline works. And you just keep talking in circles around it. Well, the reality is when you put all of those up against each other, you track the lead source through revenue, so you know which ad is producing the most revenue. That really makes the decision for you. It removes most emotion from the equation and allows you to move much, much quicker, because the decision begins to be decided by the amount of money that activity is making. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a level of branding that has to come into some of those decisions, because it should be there, but ultimately your decisions are made, they're much easier to make, and you kind of remove that emotion from it. So element number 2, you need to have a naming convention that you can use every time when building your lead sources. And this is really what we were able to do at Infusionsoft that was really effective. We had a lot of different activities going on, and before then, kind of a lot of different ways of referring to those activities. And we had a couple of different, like, traffic driving owners, and so they were all naming them in different ways. And so what we were able to do is really narrow those in to a naming convention that everybody could use, that they still use today, as Matt said. But it was easy for us to look at the activities and know what each activity was referring to. Now, luckily, a lot of the work has been done by Google by using UTM parameters. And if you haven't used, if you don't really know what UTM parameters are, here's just the basics of them. You've got medium, source, and campaign. And these are the 3 that we used primarily, that they use primarily at Infusionsoft to refer to when they're building lead sources. And here's a basic breakdown of how that would look in Google Analytics. So you'd have over here on my left, you have like an email, which would be, it says owner here, but this would be the medium. And then you'd click on that, you'd drill down to the source, which in this case would be like an add me. You have a couple of other sources that we were driving emails through. And then once you clicked on that, it would take you to the campaign level, where you would look at the specific campaigns within that medium and that source. And so in this way, using Google Analytics and UTM parameters, we were able to drill down to, in this case, the demo conversion, which is one thing we were focusing on at Infusionsoft at the time. And so we were able to get a little bit closer to revenue through that. Now, it wasn't all the way to, because we had to figure out a way to get that into Infusionsoft so we could then report and then get the reports out. But the UTM parameters really gave us our structure for building the lead sources. Now, a lot of people ask, and I don't know if they are now, but why did we only use 3? Well, in my experience, we did use the term UTM parameter, but we only used that when we were talking about when we were doing Google AdWords, Bing AdWords, or display networks. We would pull in the keyword into the lead source, which I'll show you here in a minute. We would pull that into the lead source so that we could track it all the way down to the keyword or to the term level. But I never really found a lot of value in the content UTM, simply because I wanted to be able to see how this was performing within 3 steps. So a lot of the stuff that you would probably normally put in the content UTM, I kept on the campaign level, and I'll show you that exactly how that breaks down here in a minute. So here's how you, here are the specifics of the medium. This is where you are talking about the medium you're using for your activity. Somebody just asked if this is being recorded. It is. I believe it is, Matt, being recorded. Is that correct? Yes. So you've got these are the mediums that we use. We had email, referral, social, CPC, display. Now you can add additional mediums in your own, like according to your own activities, but I would keep them pretty simply aligned to what is here, so that you're aligning your mediums to what is standard for Google. So when you get into Google Analytics, if you have a different way of referring to email, Google Analytics is going to be pulling in some things that are just basic emails, and then you're going to have your own medium that's an email, and you're going to have two ways of referring to email, and it's going to create some problems. So I would keep these as closely aligned to what the Google standard is as possible, which is something like this. So if you want to add things, you can, but again, keep them pretty closely aligned to Google. The source is again pretty basic. Like, this is the source that is driving the traffic. It's not a common mistake is thinking that this is the source that is bringing the traffic to you, like a lead magnet or something like that. That's not it. This is what you're using to drive the traffic. So if you're not using paid advertising, let's say you're just doing some organic Facebook stuff, you could use Facebook, you could use Twitter. If you're doing paid advertising, it'd be the same thing. You'd still use this as the source, Twitter as the source, and then we have a couple of other things. If you're using a partner program, the source would be the name of the partner. If you're advertising for some reason in a magazine, that magazine would be the source. If you're using referral sites or referring websites, that website would be the source. So, and that's pretty standard. Now, when we got to the campaign level at Infusionsoft, this is where we tried to get a little bit more specific about the activity that we were doing, and we would break up the campaign into 3 separate functions. We would have a theme that would be basically a description, like a descriptive phrase for some sort of activity. So I have a client that does online day trading education, and they have a product that's called 11-hour options. And so for them, the theme is 11 hours. At Infusionsoft, we had the demo that we would drive to a lot, and in that case, the theme would be demo. And everybody would use these same ways of referring to the activity, to the campaign. Again, lifecycle marketing, LCM. I have another client that does SEO audits, so the theme for them is SEO A, and that would be just a way of referring to that specific theme. Then we put a date in there, and then if we had different ad variations, we would put that at the end. And so this is basically what it would look like. Now, these are some examples of what the end products would look like. So it looks a little bit complicated, but it's easily broken down into medium, underscore, and then source, underscore, and then this is the full campaign right here. And that was then the lead source. So it's easy to look at that whole thing and say, okay, like, I know what is happening here. I know this is a paid social, it's going to Facebook, and that's the specific campaign, and there's the variation. So in one glance, I could look at this and say, you know, what this activity was. Now, the reason why, and Garrod asked me this the other day, the reason why we use underscores is because we wanted to use, and if you don't know MySQL, that's okay, but we basically wanted to use MySQL to break up. Once we put them together in the lead source and looked at them like this, we also wanted to be able to break them up and report on specific aspects of it. So we wanted to be able to look at all the paid social traffic and all the different sources associated with that. We wanted to look at all the like Facebook traffic and look at all the campaigns, and in order to do that, we had to use the underscores to break those up so we could then write MySQL code to report on those. So that's why we did that. And here again, in the end, this is the goal of setting up your lead sources in this way and using UTM parameters, is so that you could drill down from the medium to the source to the specific campaign. And you can imagine in this case, if you're running a couple of different campaigns like we are here, you're going to want to know, okay, what is the reporting? What does the reporting look like in, or what does the reporting, what is performing? So in this case, AdMe, we ran a couple of different ads over a couple different time periods, and this one converted at about 8%. Now that is great, but I think somebody asked, does the lead source look that long in Infusionsoft? Well, when we got this in Infusionsoft and we're able to report on revenue based on that lead source, that's when we would really get into performance, because it's good to know. And I've seen some questions about, does Infusionsoft automatically put those UTMs in, and we're going to get into that here in a minute and talk about specifically how to get that into Infusionsoft and how to report it. So just kind of table that question for a second. So you can imagine when you're doing this, that if you're running multiple activities within an email, you're going to want to know which of these is performing at this level. And I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs that have said, listen, Preston, I really just want to know if my email is working, or if my social activities are working, excuse me, or if my retargeting is working. That's really what I want to know. I don't need to know this depth, and I think that's great. If you don't even have that, you're going to get a lot of value from knowing whether your mediums are working. But what's going to happen at one point, you're going to be running Google ads and Facebook ads, and your cost per conversion, or cost per $100, let's say you make, is in Google, let's say you pay $10 for every $100 that you make in Google, and let's say you pay $5 for every $100 that you make in Facebook. And you're going to look at that and you say, well, we shouldn't be advertising in Google, and so you're going to kind of throw that out, and you're going to focus on Facebook, which is a good thing. But if you have this level of tracking, like to the source and to the campaign, you could dig into the Google, to your Google strategy. And if you, let's say you have a couple of campaigns here that you're running, and one of them is just not working at all, and it's bloating your like it's taking all your money and it's making your cost per conversion to $10 for $100. Well, let's say you got rid of that and suddenly it became $5 for $100, the same as Facebook. And you're not going to know that unless you're tracking at this level. So if you just want the medium, I think that's great. Like, start there, start looking at that. But I would still implement the source and the campaign, so you're building that historical data that you can then use later on. So you're going to have all that data there for you to use. So that's that is the reason why we took our tracking to this level, and I recommend that for anybody. You don't have to be spending $300,000 a month like Infusionsoft was to get value from this. So aligning this to revenue, and this is the big question that a lot of people ask, is how do we get these lead sources into Infusionsoft? And let's be honest with you, it's hard. I'm a big hiker, and this is coming out of the Grand Canyon. Every year I do a rim-to-rim hike. It's 23 miles. This is the last 3 miles, and it's tough. You're here, and you've got to get up there, and that's what it feels like a lot of times with lead source tracking. You've got a couple of options. You can manually enter every lead source into Infusionsoft, use the Infusionsoft script that they have for lead sources, and use the ID, the lead source ID, to pull that lead source into Infusionsoft. But that means you have to create every lead source in Infusionsoft, and it's slow and laborious, and you can't create lead sources on the fly. There's companies that offer scripts out there that you can use with Infusionsoft Forms, but what if you're using Lead Pages or ClickFunnels and you don't want to use Infusionsoft Forms? You want to use the forms that are native to those solutions. So that's a problem. You can pay a developer, which I've done, to like create something something custom. You need to have a set of reports that you can consistently refer to optimize. Here are some of the reports that I have found as like really crucial for this. You want to know revenue based on lead source, which Infusionsoft does provide. It's not very pretty, but they do provide that. But you have to have that lead source in Infusionsoft. And another one is product sold based on lead source, which gets you there. Customer lifetime value based on lead source. I mean, imagine if you have these marketing activities going, and you have a activity that is producing like a tripwire that's like $1, and it's producing all these customers, but the revenue is only $1. Once you look at customer lifetime value, let's say that person is spending $1,000 over a year, which is more than everybody else. Well, that would be so valuable for you to know, so you could keep doing that activity and not just turn it off because the initial ROI was just $1 per sale. So those are the types of reports that you need. At this point, I want to hand it over, and we're going to move the presenter over to Garrod. He's going to talk about how they do this in Graphly, and specifically, the client that I referred to earlier that does online day trading education. They spend about $10,000 a month, and we're looking to scale that up. And we've used Graphly to report our lead sources from traffic to revenue. And so I'm going to hand that over to Jerry, those reports.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Preston. Wow, you guys, we've just received some pretty awesome instruction and strategies. I know that as you try to implement this in your own business, and certainly for your clients, which undoubtedly will make you look like the rock stars you are, this will probably be something that you rewind a few times to make sure you've got the methodology down. And like Preston said, you know, there are a couple different schools of thought, and I know we've all got different experience. The key thing, it's a lot like tagging in Infusionsoft. You choose a methodology, and then you stick with it. And as long as you're consistent, you're going to see some pretty amazing results. Okay, cool. So here we are. All right, guys. So like I said, Preston shared some super sound principles with us. I know you saw the prices there. It seems daunting and overwhelming. At Graphly, we didn't want lead source tracking, accurate lead source tracking, to be something that only the people with a lot of cash flow could pull off, larger organizations. We wanted to make it a reality and make it easy for everyone, for every Infusionsoft user. So I think that's what we've done. So let me actually jump into a dashboard here. You'll notice I am in Infusionsoft. We believe that reporting dashboards are a lot like Infusionsoft dashboards. They should be like front and center, right in front of you, as opposed to hidden in the trunk. So Graphly does get embedded right inside Infusionsoft. So this is, let's see, we're on a web traffic dashboard. These numbers are, by the way, all being produced by Graphly's web tracker, but those aren't the ones we're here to talk about today. I want to talk specifically about kind of the financial side and the ROI side. And so what Preston and I have done is, you know, with this particular client, and we hooked this up not long ago at all, but we just kind of started adding some of the reports that we thought would be helpful and beneficial in making some decisions. And so I'm just kind of walk through this so that hopefully you can see and understand some of the numbers and how they might impact our decisions. And then we'll go through, you know, maybe answering a few questions and showing you how easy it is to get set up. So in the top left-hand corner, you'll see our lead sources set. This is more of just an activity showing you what Graphly has done for you inside your Infusionsoft account. So those are 209 leads where Graphly actually, you know, dynamically grabbed the value, either whether it was from your UTM variable, you know, UTM source. If you're using that, if that wasn't present, you know, kind of referring URL, there's a process and logic to that. Next to the side of that, you've got lead sources by product. Now, there are kind of two ways to view things, and Graphly can help you depending on, you know, when you got that analysis cap on and you're like trying to make decisions, there are kind of two ways to look at products and lead sources. So the one we're looking at here with the horizontal bars, basically we said, hey, we're trying to sell this product. We'd like to see the lead sources that are most effective at doing so. And so we can see it looks like the winners are the Basecamp Trading, and the value charts. Those are kind of the top sources that are helping us, and you can see how the other ones rank against it. The inverse of that is, hey, I'm spending money over here, sending traffic to a landing page, and then making other product offers. So I'm choosing a particular lead source and saying, what products does this particular, source of traffic help me sell? And you can see whatever BCC Platinum membership is, that is kind of the primary driver. And so that's the product lead comparison. Most platforms, if you are using their pixel, whether it's Google AdWords or Facebook, obviously there are ways to track conversions, and those platforms will take that spend and say, hey, here's kind of your cost to acquire a customer, or your earning, or your cost per click, or your cost per customer. We take the revenue associated, we're tracking, hey, this person came from this Facebook ad, and then we're like, they spent this much in Infusionsoft, and we're actually coming up with the revenue to help determine, okay, if your cost per lead is 25 cents and your value per lead is 36 cents, then we're winning. We're not at that 1-to-2 ratio that we want to be at, like Preston mentioned at the beginning, but we're at least coming out, we're in the black. And so that can help you determine some of those things. Now, I want to take a moment before I talk about other charts and maybe just actually open up one of these things so you can kind of see the settings behind it. Every single chart that's on this dashboard has options that are specific to the data that we're trying to get at, and so you can see some of the lead sources here. We didn't get a time. I'll talk later about something called the lead source consolidator. We didn't get a chance to use that before the call. Ideally, you'd only see one Facebook lead source, but the fact that it's looking like this is actually going to be a great setup for when we talk about that. But within the criteria builder, there are all kinds of other settings from Infusionsoft where you can say, and they have to also have this tag, or the custom field has to be set to this value. So I don't want you to think that this dashboard is something that like you just turn on and it's static and there's nothing you can do. Everything you see here has been completely tailored and customized for this particular client. One of my favorite things, Preston listed 3 different things, kind of core metrics that he looks at, but one of my favorite things by far is lifetime value, because I feel like lifetime value, people who are able to see the big picture, the long play, are the ones who can win in specific niches and industries. Ryan Dice is really popular for saying, something along the lines of, I want to be able to outspend all of my competitors. I would rather spend more to get a customer, knowing my back end, knowing the lifetime value. And so if you're confident and understand what a customer is truly worth to you over time, it really allows you to make prudent decisions in that advertising process. I want to show you real quick these 3 reports. Each of these 3 tiles here, they're all lifetime value reports. There are different ways to look at lifetime value, and we've tried to cover all of them here. So the first is actually kind of a rolling, like an ongoing value. So you can see that over time, this particular Infusionsoft user has been improving the lifetime value of their customers. And it makes sense that as customers continue to transact with you, that would increase. But I want to show you something interesting here. So you'll see that the lifetime value goes in September from 305, in October to 303. And you might be asking yourself, how could lifetime value ever decrease? Well, this particular view of lifetime value is an average of all customers. And so a lot of things could take place where, customers that jump on board that particular month are spending a lower dollar amount. You could have a high number of refunds. There are a lot of things, a certain quality of leads that you're getting could really die from a particular source, and that's why you want to track this ongoing curve. Obviously, we want it to always be trending upwards. There are occasions where it may dip, and those are times where you might dive in further to figure out what caused the dip and how you might correct the situation. But again, if you're not measuring it and you're not following it closely, you won't know those things to make those improvements. The next view of lifetime value has to do with kind of intervals throughout that customer life cycle. I've chosen to look at customers, kind of every single month for 6 months. This is fully customizable if you want to look at it at 1 month, 6 months, a year, 2 years. You get to determine those intervals. We also get to input what we know is kind of our ROI, our point of return. So we know, let's say in this example, that it cost us $220 to acquire the customer, or maybe we want to set that mark at cost of acquisition and cost of fulfillment so that we're really looking at profitability. So you can see in this interval lifetime value chart that we are, the first 2 months kind of in the red, and then in month 3, we jump into the black. And so we're like, okay, so basically we're going to be cash flow negative in investing in acquiring these customers for the first 2 months, and then at some point in month 3, we then become positive. Those are important things to know. One thing for me, when I see a report like this, 2 months may or may not be bad. It depends on your market, your industry. You may even want to look at this at a weekly view. Every business has different cash flow needs. But the sooner we can get to where our value, that customer value supersedes our costs, the sooner we have money to then reinvest. So instead of maybe having, hey, I can invest $1,000 a month, if I can shore that up to where I'm getting beyond that cost, my ROI is positive in a shorter amount of time, I can start spending $1,000 every 3 weeks. And as I improve that, I can start spending $1,000 every 2 weeks, and that money recycles and works harder and harder for you, generating more leads and sales, of course. So a similar view, but slightly different. On the far right is the transactional lifetime value. And that is where we actually say, okay, how many times do they need to transact with us before our ROI is positive? It's at that, we've set that same $220 threshold, and we see that this is actually on the third transaction would become positive. Looking at these two charts, not even having talked with Preston, but maybe you can confirm this, Preston, my guess is that there's a lot of membership, recurring subscription stuff. I'm seeing like a real steady growth.
Yep.
But for some businesses, okay, awesome. But for some businesses where you've got a lot of one-time products, understanding how many times you need to get the customer to transact with you to be positive or to reach a certain revenue goal is very important. And again, do we need to try and get them to either, 1, transact with us more often, or 2, spend more in each transaction, or maybe a combination of both. And again, if you just had these 2 reports on like a global thing, that would be great. But the whole reason for our call today is talking about the fact that, hey, one particular lead source, or even on a more granular level, one particular campaign is going to, produce a better lifetime value. So you really want to I tried to just put the general reports up here, guys, but honestly, Preston will probably go from this point, after the webinar, go in and use the criteria builder to say, okay, we're running ads on Facebook, we're running ads on Google, we've got these display ads, and you're going to break all of this down using lead source. And again, with Preston's methodology of joining it all together, the beautiful thing is all the data is there. And so we can actually come in here and select the lead sources that are relevant to his advertising. I've got a couple other ones that I just wanted to point out that I think are relevant. So actually, let me actually see if I can't jump real quick here. Give me just a second. Actually, just want to show something. I didn't get a chance to slip it in the slides. It was kind of a thought I had, just leading up to the call here. But on the screen, I've got 2 pictures here. One is obviously a broken business model, and one is a very profitable business model. And that is, what does it cost you to acquire a customer, and then what is that customer worth to you over their lifetime of spending with you? And as simple as this is, some companies who fail to understand this concept suddenly don't have cash, suddenly, don't know where the money's gone, and before you know it, they're out of business. Now, for some for some, depending on your cash flow, this same like seesaw where we're kind of weighing the scale here, it may not be the cost to acquire a customer. Like I said before, it might be your cost to acquire the customer and your cost to fulfill. You might also not be looking at lifetime value. One of the reports that happens, it's kind of one of the first indicators to check before you even get to lifetime value, is new customer value. So what is that customer worth immediately? What is that first dollar amount when they transact with you? Perhaps you don't have, a business loan or a credit card or something where you can float spending money and be out that money. And that's where, divided by lead source, you're saying, okay, here's what, we're spending this much money over on Facebook, and here's what these new customers are worth to us on average. You can kind of see these averages here. And you can kind of see, okay, here's what they're worth us right away. So we're profitable right out of the gate, or no, we're not. So there's maybe some tweaks we need to make. And again, when you're looking at a particular lead source, this chart representing, let's say, Facebook, if you're doing really well and suddenly things start dropping, I'm sure anyone who's advertised on Facebook can understand that there's, this thing called ad fatigue where it converts really well, and then over time it's been exposed, seen by a lot of people, it starts to lose its effectiveness. Now, you might be able to identify that inside Facebook. You might not, but Graph will also kind of start to show you some of those things as well. Any questions, any feedback, Preston, Matt, any questions related to kind of some of the charts that we're looking at here before I talk about other elements of implementation?
We did have a couple questions. Karen was asking if you can kind of, and this I think was for Preston, if you can back up and explain what can be done with Infusionsoft before you move into Graphly. And I think the point that you were making, Preston, is that the reporting from Infusionsoft, natively is really challenging. It's really difficult. But you can get the data in there, and then having a tool like what we're doing with Graphly here is critical to really getting clear reporting and clear insights all around that data. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. We're definitely not in the we're definitely not in the business of reinventing the wheel. If it existed in Infusionsoft, it wouldn't have been a problem that we tackled. It really is quite challenging to pull off without some type of third-party coding or approach to doing it, for sure. Awesome. Well, I want to be cognizant of the short amount of time that we have together, and I don't want to push this over. Matt, I do want to take just 1 minute just to show, and maybe open up to questions after that. But just I want everyone to feel confident that this is something, regardless of your skill level, regardless of how long you've been a partner, it's something that everyone can achieve very easily. This is something that Preston, I think, got set up in about 10, 15 minutes. You literally just come in here, create an account, copy the script, and then you paste it on your various web properties, your website, your lead pages, your click funnels. Preston made it easy on his client because he uses Google Tag Manager, so he was able just to add the script to that one location, and then it reflected everywhere. And then you can see he actually already came in and started building some URLs using our URL builder. And so it really is, there's just kind of one place, you copy and paste a script. Whenever you're going to generate a link, you take 1 minute to do it here, and it's all encoded and with the correct UTM values, and you're good to go. So there isn't much to it, but let's go ahead and open it up to questions, Matt.
Yeah, Josh asked. Josh asked if you can get Infusionsoft automatically UTM tag email links. Like, that would be amazing, Josh, if they would do that. But as far as I know, they won't. So you would need to build like a specific UTM link for each email in a campaign, or for a specific sequence or something like that. What other questions?
Cool. Yeah, and Jared's asking if you have to place that script on every form.
That's a great question. Usually, I'd say like 60-70% of our customers are using WordPress for their website. Any platform you're using that has a header or footer, you're going to put it in the header so it reflects on every page. There are some exceptions where maybe you're using the hosted version of Infusionsoft's form, where definitely you'd want to add the script in the code on those hosted Infusionsoft forms. But for the most part, usually, you can just put it in the head of the site.
Yeah, and I'll just speak to what we use for using Google Tag Manager. It's a free service, so you can set up a Google Tag Manager, and then you take that code and put it all over everywhere you need to be. And then anytime you want to add a script like this, you just add it in one place and it propagates out to every source. So that's a free resource that Google provides that you can use that is just awesome. So if there is concern of, well, I've got to add this to all these places, use Google Tag Manager, add it once, and then you can go in and add any script once to Google Tag Manager and it'll work.
Brilliant. Jared says he's been putting off setting up Tag Manager and thinks you just made him want to do it.
Scott had a question up specifically about Graphly, Jared, that you could probably take. It's are lead sources in Graphly limited to the Infusionsoft default lead source, or can you use a custom field?
Yep, you can use a custom field. That's not a problem at all. So when you go in and you create like a tracking account, in the settings here, you actually get to determine whether you want to. We'll map those to the lead source field. Because Infusionsoft has a couple of reports around lead source, that's kind of the default. But if you're currently using a custom field to store those lead sources, we can certainly push that into the custom field for you as well.
Awesome. This is really cool stuff, and I think what's great here is number one is that this is really easy to set up, and the methodology that Preston's gone over is really solid, really sound methodology, and so definitely want to encourage everyone here to tap into this stuff and start somewhere, with your naming conventions, and start to really kind of categorize what you're tracking and how you're tracking it, and what what lead sources, especially if you're spending money on lead sources, which pretty much everything you can correlate some kind of cost to it, but start doing it because at the end of the day, here's what's important. Your clients are paying you to provide them with a service. It may be web design, it may be copywriting, it may be API configuration, it may be business process optimization and planning and strategy. Whatever it is, they're paying you to provide a service, and what they want to see is a return on that investment. That cost may not be directly correlated to a Facebook ad. But it's important for you to be able to show your clients the return that they're getting on their investment in your services and all of the services and products that they're leveraging in order to promote, market their products and services to their customers and convert customers. You want to be able to show them how it's performing. You want to be able to justify your job and the cost that's associated with you and your work. So, that is, at the end of the day, there's job security in this stuff, but it's important beyond that to help your clients to grow. And you should be using this in your own business as well to help you grow, and really, really powerful stuff, because without it, you're just kind of shooting arrows in the dark, and that's generally not a good thing to do.
That's really great input, Matt. So just to echo what Matt said, we no longer run a marketing agency, but we did for many years before we got into software development. And for us, this was huge. Clients don't really care about the effort you make; they care about the results you achieve for them. And so when we were able to, through different means, show them results, not just, hey, look at this campaign that's like massive and it's this big spider web, that doesn't really get them to renew with you. What gets them to renew with you is putting more bank in their account so that they have the funds available to do so. So that is just an excellent spot on point that kind of have firsthand experience with. I can vouch for, Matt. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, let me just add to that real quick. You know, I've been doing marketing and whatever consulting for a lot of years, and you know, before coming here to Infusionsoft, you know, I haven't been great at it for many of those years. In fact, I was fired by a good handful of clients because I wasn't able to produce, you know, the proof that what we were doing was working, and you know, that was painful, but a great lesson learned. And so this is near and dear to my heart, personally.
Awesome.
Yep, I'll just add to that like if you're doing activities for somebody and like I just from an integrity perspective, I have a really hard time doing marketing for somebody that I don't know is working. And so if you are out there doing activities and you don't have a sense or an idea that they're working, it's just kind of general. Like personally, that's why this stuff is so important to me, because I want to know that I'm proving like that what I'm doing is working for them, both because I'm going to take that knowledge and I'm going to apply it for other people and I'm going to utilize it in other areas, so there's a benefit there, but also like just purely from an integrity perspective, like it's hard for me to do something knowingly that like that I don't know isn't producing a result. And so like I'll just echo both Garrod and Matt in that, like this is valuable, it's important, and setting up stuff like this with clients is hugely beneficial, and you're just going to be able to, you know, get more clients consistently because you're proving your results over and over again.
Well, awesome, guys. This has been fantastic, and you know, like I said, everyone, you know, I really hope you'll go out and employ this methodology and you know, look into Graphly as a valuable tool for you to help impact you know, the results that you're producing for your clients in your own business, and really take advantage of this stuff. So, guys, Garrod, Preston, both of you, thank you so much for joining us on the Business Booster. This has been really, really wonderful content for everyone.